We have always known that heedless self-interest was bad morals. We now know that it is bad economics. In every land, there are always at work forces that drive men apart and forces that draw men together. In our personal ambitions, we are individualists. But in our seeking for economic and political progress as a nation, we all go up, or else we all go down as one people. And this sounds like, well, yes, of course. But the truth is that American culture was founded on the principles of individualism, of Benjamin Franklin, Horatio Alger, Emerson's idea of self-reliance. The idea of community, while it is a factor in American culture, it was never so strong before or afterwards as it was during the Depression, when people felt that they actually needed other people simply in order to survive. This confounded the classic tenets of American individualism. It was something that needed to be learned by Dust Bowl migrants in the Grapes of Wrath, but also in a different key by starving showgirls in Busby Berkeley's musical. It even infuses the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers musicals. There's Gone with the Wind, and there's President Roosevelt. I'm not sure whether it's his inaugural address or one of his major speeches. And here's another image of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. You can see how, if I could, I would have this entire slideshow here all Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, but couldn't allow myself that indulgence. And in the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers musicals, we have two people whose speech world leaves them at loggerheads with each other. They never can agree on anything. But they connect beautifully with grace and style when they dance. In this respect, they resemble the bickering couple in screwball comedies such as It Happened One Night or Breeding a Baby. People who did not know that they were made for each other, yet manage eventually to bridge the disparities of class, temperament, and almost farcical misunderstanding. This is what is so different between Depression art in America and Depression art in Europe. Depression art in Europe is very class conscious. It's partly about class warfare, whereas Depression art in America is so American that it's all about bridging the divide between classes, bridging them romantically, bridging them through comedy, bridging them through solidarity, and so on. If you think of President Obama trying to be post-partisan, I don't know whether that will work or not, but the idea of, instead of polarizing differences, trying to bridge differences was a keystone of the New Deal and of the federal programs then. Wonderful variants of the same message of emotional solidarity can be found in songs as different as Brother, Can You Spare a Dime by Yip Harburg and Jay Gorney, and the song from which I took the title of my book, Dancing in the Dark, by Dietz and Schwartz. And in the first song, a man asks his listeners not so much for money, when he says, Brother, can you spare a dime? He's not really begging for a dime. What he asks for, when you listen to the song closely, is simple recognition. He says, I built your nation, I fought your wars, please don't forget me. As I wrote in my book, spare a dime really simply means, look at me, remember what I've done, and see what I've come to now. He's the worker who's built the railroads, built factories and skyscrapers, slogged through the European mud only to become the proverbial forgotten man who would soon help elect FDR. He speaks for the wounded and the vulnerable and asks the listener to take notice and take responsibility. There's nothing more radical in this song than an appeal for common humanity. Could you play the track to me? This is Bing Crosby's version.
They used to tell me I was building a dream, and so I followed the mob. When there was earth to plow, or guns to bear, I was always there, right on the job. They used to tell me I was building a dream, with peace and glory ahead. Why should I be standing in line? faded race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower up to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, gee, we look swell, full of that Yankee doodly-dum. Half a million boots went slogging through hell, and I was the kid with the drum. Say, don't you remember? They called me Al. It was Al all the time. Why don't you remember? I'm your pal. Say, buddy, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, ah, gee, we look swell, full of that Yankee doodly-dum. Half a million boots went slogging through hell, and I was the kid with the drum. Say, don't you...
Okay, and now in the second song, now I discovered really the meaning of these songs, including the one that's about to come up, Dancing in the Dark, when I was working unexpectedly on a section on Bing Crosby for the book. I hadn't intended to include him, but a friend of mine, a colleague of mine at the Graduate Center of New York, gave me a 4-CD set of songs recorded in the early 30s by Bing Crosby, and I realized that there was a reason why he was the most popular single entertainer in the 30s in recordings, and it was a very popular radio show and movies and so on. In the second song, Dancing in the Dark, we have something that we usually wouldn't be related to, Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? It seems to be a song about dancing. And when I listened to Bing Crosby's version of it, I realized that this was what my book was about. In this song, a couple cling to each other on a dance floor, surrounded by a great darkness, which could refer just as easily to the darkened ballroom, our own darkest feelings, the existential limits of the human condition, or the ongoing troubles of the depression. They are called waltzing in the wonder of why we're here. Time hurries by, we're here and gone. But they're consoled at least by the fact that we can face the music together, which is the tuneful message of so much depression on. You play track.